It's not a walkthrough, playthrough, review, anything like that. It's just me playing the game badly so you can see what it looks like. Okay then, this is Amok on the Commodore VIC-20. Obvious, someone's had their thesaurus out and like, what's a word that's like berserk but isn't berserk? I know, Amok. Yeah, so this it's a berserk clone. Pretty straightforward really. It's exactly what you would expect of a game of berserk, except slightly different graphics, but you know what you're playing when you play this. Oh, there we go, they're starting to shoot back already. Good lord. Hey, I like that. They can kill their own people. I think any game where the computer-controlled enemies can kill each other is good in my book. And that's exactly what happened here. Shame about my aiming. There we go. It's funny, my guy, he looked, oh god, oh dear, he's like a cowboy. And look at him. Totally got a cowboy hat on and he's got John Wayne stance there. Yep. I won't try and do any John Wayne impersonations because they would be appalling. References to horses and milk, we will not be doing that. I thought about it for a fraction of a second and decided that would be a bad idea. But it's, you know, there's nothing fancy about this. It's not big and it's not clever. And I wouldn't even say I'm the greatest Berserk fan. But I do think that back in the day, had I got this, actually it's more one that I think if I had it on tape I would think fair enough. If I'd paid a fiver for it on tape, if I'd paid 30 quid or something for a cartridge, I don't know what VIC-20 cartridges cost back then, but that's kind of what Atari ones cost. If I'd paid £30 for this on a cartridge, I would probably not be utterly thrilled. Because that would have been like, well, when I was 15 I worked in a pub, and that would have been, how much did, I think I probably made about £15 when I started working there, or what was it, or was it £7.50? I didn't make it, no it was £7.50 I made for a weekend. It did go up over the years. Yeah. So, you know, 30 quid, it would have been looking at a few weeks' work to save up for this. I think I would have been a bit put out. Certainly there are other games I would have bought in preference. Golf for one, Galaxian for another, and there are quite a few others that are better, but you know, had I been given this as a gift, I think I'd have been happy enough. Had I got it on tape for a fiver, I'd have been happy enough. God, they're getting a bit, yeah. Okay, I don't think I need to play anymore. You get the gist. It is Berserk, pretty much, on the VIC-20. It's on that penultimate plus cartridge from The Future Was 8-bit. And interestingly, this one is centered. It's in the middle of the screen. It's not pushed off to the left. So I you know, kind of unpredictable when it's going to do that and when it's not, and I don't know why it does it. But there you go. Thank you for watching. Okay, today's Q&A question. Well, there's a couple actually, but they're sort of on related subjects, so I've combined them. First one from someone called Graham R. Now, they asked this question via email because they couldn't remember if they'd asked me in the main questions section, comments section. So they emailed and said, did I ask you a question? Yes, I can't remember if I asked my question for Q&A, collections and whether they go out of control. That wasn't the wording, but the general gist. Yeah. I don't know if you asked it in comments, but I never managed to find it. So, but I get the gist of your question there. That is followed
by a question from Zippy 2020, link to his channel down there, for Q&A. When does collecting become hoarding? A thread developed in the comments regarding this, and so more questions or question was added to this. I think it does raise the wider question for Q&A of whether gaming is compatible with a long-term relationship. I'm divorced, and I know it was difficult to find time to pursue my hobby when I was married, as it can be quite an antisocial pursuit. Whether we like it or not, our hobby is perceived by many as nerdy and antisocial. Yeah, this came about because there was another comment that I don't remember exactly what it was, but I pointed out that gaming was not the cause of the breakdown of my relationship with my wife. Anyway, to answer the first question from Graham R. Do collections get out of control? I think they can. Okay, actually, I'm going to start answering Zippy 2020's question, when does a collection become hoarding, and then combine the second part of his question with Graham's question. So, when does a collection become hoarding? This can only be opinion, and this will be my opinion. Because different people collect for different reasons and have different goals and different criteria that are relevant to them. To me, my collection, I've tried to, while I was still actively collecting, and I'm not at the moment because I simply haven't got the space, I tried to collect examples of computers and consoles that mean something to me, that I remember from when I was a kid or later. When I was in school, I would hear about various different computers and found them interesting, and maybe never saw them. It's the Richard Stone story again, reading all the adverts out of the magazines that he brought into school. And I would remember the names of these systems and maybe whether he thought they were good or not, but eyelash. Anyway, I don't know why I've got an eyelash on my tongue. Anyway, but so my criteria as my collection developed was I wanted one of each model of each system. So Mega Drive, I want Mark 1 and Mark 2. I've got Mark 1 and Mark 2. Spectrum, you got your 16K, I haven't got one of them. 48K with rubber keyboard, got one of them. 48K plus, got one of them. 128K toast rack, got one of them. 128K plus 2, grey and black, I've got the grey one. Then you've got the plus 3, I haven't got one of them. You know, an example of each model. Atari 2600s, I've got 4 of the 6 different model types. That to me is collecting. It is each example is different enough for it to be distinct from the other examples of that system. There are collectors who, to my mind, it looks like hoarding to me. They may have some criteria that I'm unaware of, but when I see collections that comprise 3, 4, 5, 6 multiple versions of exactly the same model of the same system, and I see this happen, and I'm sure they have reasons for doing it. I don't know what those reasons are. To me, that looks like hoarding. You know, I know there are people who have many Jupiter Aces. There weren't that many models of Jupiter Ace, and that, to my mind, is only hoarding. It certainly pushes up the value of them because they're a rare system anyway and cost a lot of money, and it's like, is this collecting as an investment, and are they artificially raising the value of them? Edit. Okay, I can't remember exactly what I was saying, having been interrupted by my phone. I think I was talking about Jupiter Aces. I was talking about hoarding. I suppose, to me, collecting becomes hoarding when the primary interest of the person collecting is not in using the things that they're collecting, but you don't have to collect these things to use them, but you must, I shouldn't say must, but I think it's a valid thing to collect things that you're not going to use if your interest is in them as a historical item, if you're interested in the device itself, the object, its history, what it represents, what it means to you, what it means to other people. Your interest is in that object. I think as soon as your interest in it is financial, you're hoarding. If it's all about an investment, if it's about manipulating supply and demand, if it's about buying something that you think will be worth more in years to come, so you buy lots of them, that to me, that's hoarding. That's not collecting. That economically I understand it, but from the perspective of a retro gaming collector, it is not a valid reason to be buying these things, collecting them, hoarding them. I see it as quite a negative thing to do. It has a negative impact on the retro gaming and collecting community, on people who have an interest in these things for what they are, not what they're worth. Yeah, that's my view. I would not pretend to speak for anyone other than myself. Now moving on to when collections get out of control and can they have a negative impact on relationships? Yeah, yes. It's hard to say when is it out of control. It is fair to say that collecting anything can have it can get out of control. It can have a negative impact on relationships. There is certainly, I can think of definitely one, and I'm pretty sure there's been more than one example of retro collecting YouTubers whose marriages have failed because of, hard to say whether it was the collecting or the YouTubing. Not naming any names. Certainly quite a few years back I can think of a quite high profile example, and it was sad, and they didn't realise what they had done until they had done it, until it was too late, and it was very sad. It might be fair to say that if that is happening, if you have a relationship that is suffering because you are focusing all of your attention on your collecting or your gaming rather than your relationship, the fault is not with collecting. To my mind, that just suggests that there's something wrong with the relationship anyway. If you would rather be sitting and playing old video games or buying old computers or perusing eBay to look for old computers, if that is more interesting and entertaining and a more enjoyable way of spending your time than spending your time with your other half, you're probably with the wrong person. I don't look at that as meaning, my God, this person's stupid, can't they see what they're doing? It means if this suits them better, that person doesn't suit them. But you know, sometimes it is just this person is so blind they don't know what they're doing. Not for me to say. It definitely happens. It's definitely something to keep your eye open for. If you're a collector and you spend a lot of time collecting or a lot of time gaming, and you're in a relationship, there will always be warning signs. It's just that you might not necessarily notice them. Things will be said and it's easy to overlook them or think, silly. Of course I don't love my computers more than you, dear. But if it's being said, someone thinks it, and it's something to pay attention to. For the record, and I said it already, gaming and collecting was nothing to do with why my marriage went to the dogs. I say went to the dogs. That was Andrea on the phone to me just now. We speak to each other every day. We see each other 2-3 times a week. I go over there. There is a strong possibility that I will be moving back in, whilst also keeping this place sort of as a backup, as a reserve, bolt hole. If things get difficult and we need a bit of space, there will be somewhere to have a bit of space. That's the plan. That summer is when we talk about that happening. We'll see. But what was it? I'm divorced. I know it was difficult to find time to pursue my hobby when I was married, as it can be quite an antisocial pursuit. Yes, it is true. When you're in a relationship, if you've got a hobby that you really want to spend a lot of time with, it's difficult. If you're lucky, you've got a partner, wife, spouse, husband, whatever, who will allow you the time and the space that you would like to pursue your pastimes and your hobbies. But not everyone is so lucky. And sometimes, I mean, that is the thing. What kind of a relationship do you have? Did you have the hobby before you met the person? In which case, that person has to accept you spend a lot of time on this. But it's like if you got married and then developed the hobby and spent more time on it, then they might have grounds to complain. It is one of those things. There are no short, easy answers. Certainly, I've had more time to game since living here. And having said that, while I've got more time to game, I actually don't spend more time gaming. Partly, I think, because a lot of my time spent gaming before was playing online. I spent quite a bit of time online playing Battlefield. I really can't do that here because the Wi-Fi is so crap that it won't support online gaming effectively. So I spend less time gaming since moving out. That's strange, really, now I think about it, but yeah. I can't really go into a lot more detail about any of the aspects of these questions, really. There are a lot of different views and opinions and things, and that's all they are. There is no objective answer. To me, hoarding, collecting becomes hoarding when your interest is not in the devices themselves, but in their value. And you've got lots of the same thing. That, to me, is hoarding. And can collecting be damaging to relationships? Most definitely. But also, relationships can be damaging to collecting or gaming. And it is a thing. Communication. You have got to communicate and be clear about what you want and understand what your partner wants and meet in the middle somewhere. And if you can't do that, well, then you've got a problem. But communication is the first thing. Listen to what they're saying, and they need to listen to what you're saying, and that's when you decide what's more important. Yeah, okay, that's about all I can say about that. If you've got any questions you'd like answering in a video like this, just leave a question in the comments below. Begin your question with 4 Q&A, so I know not to answer it in the comments. Thank you for watching.
It says here Bedway offers his thanks to those who subscribe to his Patreon account thing. Is that what he needs?